Session before we go out for break for lunch. And this will be a presentation that Dr. James Crott would give on cybersecurity education in the United States. So James is a very interesting character. He did get his PhD in horticulture at WSU. And then he said, I am interested in computer science. And so he switched and did some studies in computer science, including a master's, which he completed with me. And so his master's thesis was one of the best theses I've ever seen. He did cybersecurity education as a topic and surveyed things that are rightly done in a way and things that could be improved if you think about education in general. The other piece was to look at how some of these centers of academic excellence and other things that are done in the US are done and do a systematic study. And this work was published in one of the leading conferences in computer science education, ACF-CSE, that's the #1 conference. And so that work is part of the thing that he would be talking about now. James is also the project manager for CySER. So he participated in the program himself, and we were lucky to have him around to be a project coordinator. And all of the amazing things that you see behind it is where James comes in. And so you might have had a lot of emails and things like that. I will be having a meeting at 12 at ECS and I'm at 3 So if you see me leave, it's not because I know the subject or I got bored, but because I have a meeting to go to. And when I come back, you will see me, maybe I'll be late for the person who will be speaking after lunch, and know that I'm coming late, not because I kind of are doing something else, but that meeting is going to take some time. So I'm going to leave the floor for James, and welcome.
All right, thank you very much, Asfa. Yeah, this is my 4th year here. So first year I was in the audience like all of you, and 3 years since then I've been kind of behind the scenes working on the CySER project in the workshop. And this actually ended up being a really great time slot for me to give this talk, because a lot of the stuff CJ just said covers all my motivation for the work I've done here. So the flow of this, I'll just quickly go over the motivation, which has already been discussed in the previous presentation. Then there are some important cyber education frameworks that I'm going to talk about. That there's 3 of them, and that's what my work sort of centered around for my thesis. And then I'll talk about the different sort of research activities that made it my thesis. I did, as also mentioned, an analysis of top US cybersecurity programs. I looked at sort of the general body of cybersecurity education research over the last 10 years that's out there. And then I did a comparison between these 3 cybersecurity frameworks. And at the end, I'll go over, it's kind of a smaller portion, but I did do a mapping of WSU's new bachelor degree program in cybersecurity, and did that to one of these frameworks, well, actually to all the frameworks. So I'll go over that at the end as well. Yeah, so like CJ said, he mentioned how cybersecurity is a very dynamic landscape. It's constantly evolving. There's new software, new tools, new exploits and vulnerabilities being discovered all the time. And he also mentioned the sort of the workforce gap. And one aspect of that gap can be attributed to a skill gap between what the industry is saying we want our employees to have these skills, and what college students are actually being taught in school. So I'll go over that a little bit as well. And so all this taken together highlights the need for periodically reviewing how we teach cybersecurity, what we teach, and just to keep up with the evolving landscape, and to overall improve our teaching methods and the quality of our graduates. So the 3 frameworks that made up the bulk of my work, and I'll go into more details in each of these on the following slides, but just generally the names are the NICE framework. There's the Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, which was another topic that came up in the previous discussion, and then the Cybersecurity Curriculum 2017. So first, the NICE framework. This is NICE. NICE stands for, first of all, a National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. This is run by the National Institute for Standards and Technology, and it's published under, its official name is the Workforce Framework for Cybersecurity, but more commonly it's just referred to as the NICE framework. And the piece of that, it's a larger program that I'm going to talk about here, but the part of it that I use for my work is specifically a reference spreadsheet that they include that is sort of an enumeration of a number of cybersecurity jobs that exist, along with the tasks, knowledge, and skills that are required for each of those work roles. So this is a breakdown of the organization of the NICE framework. There's 7 overarching categories, and those are further broken down into 33 specialty areas. And then across those 33 specialty areas, there are 52 work roles. I don't know if there's more now. This is from work I did in 2023. But I think it's going through an update process, but it might still be this for now. So this might still be up to date. But I have the tasks highlighted there because that's what I use for my work. So there are a number, with each work role, there are a number of task descriptions associated with those work roles to describe what someone with that particular work role, and I'll give it later at the end of my talk, I'll have an example of some of these work roles. But they all have different numbers of task descriptions associated with them, but those are there to describe what someone in that job role actually does. Some examples here would be like perform security reviews, identify gaps in security architecture, and develop a security risk management plan. That'd be an example from one of these work roles. And these different task descriptions could be used by multiple work roles or not. So this is all publicly available on the internet if you want to go and get more in depth with it. So these are just sort of some examples to show you the structure, like what these task descriptions look like and how they're written. The second framework is the Centers for Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity. This program is operated by the NSA and the DHS, including partnerships with a bunch of other government bodies, including NSF, FBI, et cetera, and NICE that I was just talking about. The goal of it is to help academic institutions in the United States provide training and education in cybersecurity at a high level and meet workforce needs, like CJ was talking about. Designations, I think these all got named earlier, but the ones I focused on for my work are the cyber defense and cyber operations designations, because these ones specifically relate to undergraduate education, whereas the CAE and research designation focuses on graduate education and research, as the name implies. The CAE program is organized by knowledge units, and these are the things that to be designated as a Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, you have to have some sort of program, could be a degree, could be a certificate, but it has to cover all of these knowledge unit requirements. I won't read all of them here, but they're grouped. So all the ones under foundational, your program has to have courses that cover each of those. And then your program can cover either all of the technical core or all of the non-technical core, depending on. So they kind of build in this flexibility to allow different types of programs to participate and be centers of academic excellence. And then there's a whole long list of optional knowledge units. And for bachelor, if you're doing a bachelor degree or a certificate or a concentration within a bachelor degree, you need to be covering 14 out of 56 of these. And if you're doing an associate degree or some sort of 2-year degree, then you have to cover 3 of those. So these are like I showed the examples of the task descriptions from the NICE framework. These are some examples of what the knowledge unit learning outcomes, how they're structured. So for example, under the Cybersecurity Foundations knowledge unit, you have outcomes such as describe the fundamental concepts of the cybersecurity discipline and used to provide system security. And there's some other examples there, but I won't read each one of them out loud. So that slide was for cyber defense, and that was more, had that flexibility built in. The cyber operations is a bit more stringent in the programs and the program requirements. So kind of have to have a little bit more specific type of program to get a cyber operations designation. And instead of having all those 4 different categories, the cyber operations designation just has mandatory and optional ones. And every program has to cover all 10 mandatory knowledge units. And some of the examples, operating system theory, discrete math, vulnerabilities, legal and ethics, so that kind of stuff. And then there are 17 total optional knowledge units, and your program has to offer 10 of those, and students going through the program have to take 4 of them, at least 4. And that's stuff like applied cryptography, digital forensics, embedded systems, a lot of names there that you probably recognize from some of the cybersecurity courses here. And then finally, the third framework I used is the Cybersecurity Curricula 2017. This is a joint effort between the Association for Computing Machinery and the IEEE. I can never remember what all the E's stand for, electrical engineering and something, but everyone knows IEEE. And it was received some funding from NSF, NSA, and the Intel Corporation. It had a global advisory board that included people from academics from all around the world. And it also had an industry advisory board that included people from some of the bigger tech companies like Google, Microsoft, IBM, et cetera. Yeah, and I think one thing I'll mention here is that it actually lists the NICE framework as a major source in its own development. So you'd expect there to be some correlation between the recommendations here, and that's something I'll discuss in a little bit here. It's also used by ABET, which is an accreditation. It's like a private accreditation body. ABET stands for the, I think, Accreditation Board for Engineering Technology. That's sort of the premier if you have like a cybersecurity program, you want it accredited by ABET. And I think our program is currently in the process of trying to get that accreditation. There's like a cycle, and the next cycle, since the program came in, since our cybersecurity program came into existence, is I believe this year. So I think that's underway. It's organized into cross-cutting concepts, which all the terms you see there, you're hopefully really familiar with at this point. They're all very commonly used in cybersecurity settings: confidentiality, integrity, availability, risk, adversarial thinking, and systems thinking. So those should all be very familiar terms. And then it also includes a number of knowledge areas: data security, software security, component security, and so on and so forth. So that's how that's organized. And within each of those knowledge areas, it has lists of learning outcomes, which are similar to the task descriptions from the NICE framework. And just some examples from the data security knowledge area. I have them on the screen here. Things like describe the purpose of cryptography and list ways it is used in data communications. There's some other examples that you can read if you like. So those are the three sort of like big cybersecurity educational frameworks that lay out recommendations on how people in this country should be, how we want them to be educated when it comes to cybersecurity. So what I did with the Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, these are all, you have to go through, like CJ was mentioning, there's an application process to get that designation, and we've gone through it here. I actually helped work on that. It's very, there's a lot of requirements, a lot of work that goes into it, and it's very rigorous. So these institutions that have been designated as Centers of Academic Excellence, you can have a certain level of faith that these are high quality programs. So using that as a baseline, I sampled some of them, not all of them, and kind of looked at the programs that they offer for cybersecurity. So global or nationally, at the time that I did this work in 2023, there were, that's a typo. There's 377 at that time. Now, I just looked at this over the weekend. Now there are 441 unique institutions. Some institutions have multiple designations, but just unique institutions, there's 441 now across the country. So, that's a growth of, 70 about over the course of a year and a half, maybe, which is, that's pretty significant growth, I'd say. So, I didn't really have the time or resources to investigate all, at that time, 377 institutions. So I just did a nationwide sampling. So I took 100 institutions, which works out really well because it's 50 states. So my goal was to just include 2 from each state. And that mostly worked. There are a couple instances where I had to, get replacements from other states that had, extras. States like Wyoming and Alaska didn't have any designated schools in them at that point. I think Wyoming has one now. Alaska still doesn't have any. But more or less, I tried to get 1 to 3 from each state wherever I could. And so that was my sample base. And so I'll just kind of summarize some of the things I looked at here. In terms of the programs offered, I looked at how much of the coursework was like general computer science or even general education requirements, because these are bachelor degrees. So, students getting a bachelor degree, there's other stuff you have to take, like, English, math, physics. So I was curious across these programs, how much of the actual credit load was specifically dedicated to cybersecurity courses. And you can see there's a lot of variability. Concentrations had not as much because they don't cover as much content, but with bachelor's degrees and associate degrees, we see a huge amount of variation in terms of the number of credits associated with cybersecurity versus not. So this highlights kind of one thing I pointed out earlier is that flexibility in the programs that a university can designate it as for the cyber defense designation. And that kind of gets reflected here in this wide range of programs that have, varying levels of actual cybersecurity courses included. And, it might seem like that has a negative to it because like we're not achieving maybe as much standardization there as we want, but it also has a big plus in the fact that it allows the participation of more types of programs. And, cybersecurity is very diverse in terms of, the fields and specific jobs you can have. And all of those need their own programs to address them. So having a wide range of programs is, I think they did it by design, and I think that's a good thing. Looking at the program types, half of the institutions I looked at offered bachelor's degrees. The chart on the right there, the gray bars show the total number of programs, and the black bars show the total number of institutions. And those are different, particularly with the certificates, because in a lot of cases, so a school might offer one certificate, or some schools offer multiple, like 3, 4 certificates sometimes on different types of cybersecurity. Because as I just mentioned, it's very diverse. They might have a certificate in cyber law or a certificate in IT, wireless technology security, something like that. So that's where that difference comes in there. So the breakdown, across the country, a lot of cybersecurity certificates. After that, we have a lot of bachelor's degrees, and then fair amount of associate degrees, and a few, here and there, you have some cybersecurity minors or cybersecurity concentration inside some other type of program, like a computer science degree or something. So again, there's a lot of variability there. Something else I was interested in is that, looking at what type of school or college house these programs, because you would expect, a cybersecurity program being offered by a computer science department to be pretty different from a cybersecurity program being offered by like a criminal justice department. And what I found was a lot less variation in this case. Most cybersecurity degrees were being offered by some sort of computer science or technology or engineering college. There are a few others sprinkled in there, like you see. A distant second is business schools offering its own cybersecurity degree, and then a couple others there. But for the most part, cybersecurity is being taught kind of in conjunction or as around like computer science, which makes sense. And so this question I looked at was, so going back to that skill gap, is part of that skill gap could be, how we talk about the programs. So there could be a disconnect between, employers finding the right students or, students finding the right program that they're interested in. So how universities promote their own cybersecurity programs could be important in this. And so looking into that, I found, not shockingly, that most of these cybersecurity programs, the names of them is going to be like BS in cybersecurity or something like that, or have the word cybersecurity in it. Not surprisingly. The more surprising is the flip side of that is that not all cybersecurity programs are actually called cybersecurity. So there's some out there that might be called like information security or something like that. So what that means is that students and employers, if they're interested in getting a cybersecurity degree or hiring cybersecurity graduates, you might need to expand your search parameters a little bit to actually capture all the possibilities out there. One interesting thing was that CAE programs are required to advertise that they are, CAE designated. I don't think anyone would not want to advertise that, but for me going and looking at these programs websites, I only found 46 of them that actually mentioned that. So that seemed kind of strange. And that's something that I think you really want, well, they're supposed to promote, and it's a little strange that they aren't. And then in terms of, recognizing what types of, educational recommendations or these frameworks that I mentioned, whether a university's program has, consulted those or included them in their own curricular design, that could help, students and employers understand more about what kind of, skills they're going to get there or going to have coming out of there. Only 8 refer to the NICE framework. Only 2 refer to the CSEC 2017. And yeah, I said, 46 mentioned that they're CE designated. So there's a lot of room there to have a, better understanding of what these programs are based on. Also, communicating your programs, general learning outcomes, what you expect your graduates to know and be able to do. Telling students, what jobs they should expect to be qualified for coming out of your program. Those are all important parts of that as well. And I show there, those are pretty low numbers too. So there's a lot of room there to just communicate about, or to improve how we communicate about cybersecurity educational programs. So the second part of this analysis of cybersecurity education research, this was a literature review. At the time I did this, see how I'm doing on time. At the time I did this, I covered the 10 years previous to that, so 2014 to 2023, looking at keyword search terms, cyber and educate. Sorted the results by relevance, and I used the ACM Digital Libraries database and the IEEE Explore database. These are really good ones. There are others, but these are kind of like the key ones that are going to have a lot of cybersecurity and computer science related type research published in them. And I ended up sifting through a bunch of papers, and it included 25 papers from each of those databases. So this is, I don't know, it's not the widest scope that you could do with the the literature review, but with the time and tools I had, I feel pretty good about it. So what I found, I broke these papers down or categorized them according to what they were reporting on. So I was interested in papers that were reporting on educational content. So the type of stuff that they're teaching, were they teaching digital forensics? Were they teaching, cyber law, that kind of stuff? The types of educational tools they used, were they reporting, were they saying they used, like a cyber physical system test bed or some sort of software to teach cybersecurity? And were they using any specific educational methods? Like how were they reporting on some sort of novel way to teach cybersecurity, from the standpoint of the instructor giving the course, that kind of thing. And so you see the distribution here. The other thing I was interested in was how many of these actually collected data and statistically analyzed it, how many did empirical studies. And of these 50 papers, only 8 did any kind of data gathering and number crunching on that data. A lot of the studies were like, well, we did this, we used this tool in a course, and then we gave the students a survey at the end of the course and asked them if they liked it and if they felt like they learned or not. But only 8 of the studies actually did some sort of pre-test and then the learning activity and then post-test to get some sort of data that they could actually look at. So a lot of room there. I mean, it's great that people are reporting on these different, content tools and methods, but there's a lot of room for being much more methodical and analytical in how we're doing our cybersecurity research. Okay, so the cybersecurity frameworks I mentioned, I did a comparison of them, and this kind of gets back to that skill gap I was mentioning and the work gap that CJ mentioned in his talk. And the way I compared them was using Bloom's revised taxonomy. So I took those task descriptions and learning outcomes that I showed you examples of earlier, and then I categorized them according to this taxonomy. And just to briefly explain it, so each level of this pyramid represents, you can equate it to an expertise level. They call it, cognitive levels, like what level you can operate at, how good you are at this topic. So, at the very fundamental levels, you need to be able to remember some facts about whatever it is, whatever the topic is. And then you get up to that next level once you know enough facts and understand them well enough to start making connections and understanding how they interrelate. Then you're at the understand level. And then at the apply levels, when you can take what you've learned and actually use it as it's meant to be used. And then that goes, you go up, analyze, evaluate, and then create at the top. You're being able to, synthesize something new with this knowledge that you've gained. So I took again, the NICE framework has 1,006 task descriptions. So I sampled 270 of those. I looked at 10 work roles, making sure I had one from at least one from each of those 7 categories. And then I looked at all the task descriptions from those 10 work roles. So you had 270 of those altogether. Then for the Cybersecurity Curriculum 2017, it only has 140 learning outcomes across all knowledge areas, so that's fine. I looked at all those. And for the CAE programs, across cyber defense and cyber operations, that had combined 269 learning outcomes, so I went ahead and looked at all of those as well. And so you see here, you see across the bottom there, the x-axis, you have those levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. So going from left to right would be going, increasing in expertise level and whatever the task is. Each group of 3 bars is the NICE framework on the left in blue, the CSEC 2017 in the middle in red, and the CAC on the right in yellow or orange, kind of a dark yellow. And the main difference that really jumps out here is that the CSEC 2017, which is used as it's used by ABET. So this is being used to judge cybersecurity programs on their accreditation status. That's really focused around that second level, kind of that lower level, understand. This is a percent of those items I looked at. So 87% of the items in those learning outcomes in the CSEC 2017, those are at the understand level. And that's coming from those recommendations for what a cybersecurity curricula should be able to impart to students. If you compare that to the blue bars in NICE, that's the blue bars there, which is the results of the NICE task description categorization. You see there's only 7% at the understand level, and all the rest of that is sort of distributed above those higher cognitive levels: apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So the takeaway from this that I get is that the NICE framework, which, remember, that's put together by NIST, involves industry, what the industry is saying, what they want these workers to be able to do. They expect this higher expertise level, basically, is the summary I get from this. So there's this disconnect between these accreditation requirements and then what industry is saying, this is what we need our workers to be able to do. Yeah, and I don't know, fixing that could be as easy as maybe revisiting the CSEC 2017 and rewriting some of those learning outcomes in a way that shows, okay, we don't need people to just understand this, we need people to actually be able to use it. So you could just do some rewriting, but probably there needs to be a little bit of reworking done there to kind of close that gap of expectation between school and work. Yeah, so this last one will probably be of most interest to any students who are here at WSU working on the bachelor degree in cybersecurity. So I took the course syllabi from all these different cybersecurity courses that are required as part of the degree, and I mapped them, to each of I'll go through each of them, but first, this is, I mapped into the NICE categories. Work roles. You see the work roles on the left of the heat map there, and the course numbers along the bottom. That might be a little hard to read, but the numbers on the table represent the number of task descriptions from that work role that are covered by the course along the bottom. So, and different work roles have different numbers of task descriptions. So you might see so this third column, 425, that's what's that? Cyber forensics and anti-forensics. And so you can see it covers a lot of the task descriptions associated with, from the NICE framework: cybercrime investigator, law enforcement or counterintelligence forensics analyst, and cyber defense forensics analyst. But some of the other jobs may, look like they don't have as much coverage, but that could also be influenced by the fact that they just don't have as many task descriptions associated with those work roles. I think there's a lot of variability in the number of task descriptions per work role. Yeah, so I'll have a summary later. There's the course numbers. Yeah, if you're taking the degree, then you know what these courses are. Things like cyber forensics, hardware security, capstone project that covers some of these as well. So what I found, the top 4 work roles from the NICE alignment that are covered by the bachelor degree here. 77% of task descriptions from the cyber operator work role are covered. 75% from research and development specialist work role are covered. 71% for software developer, and 54% for system testing and evaluation specialist. So if you're taking the degree here, this is what you can expect, to be prepared for these work roles. And if you're interested in one of these, you can look online, look up the NICE framework, and you can see what each of those specific task descriptions are that you're expected to have to be a cyber operator, for example. And then this is the mapping of those same classes to on the left. On the left up there, you have the knowledge areas from the Cybersecurity Curriculum 2017 / those are the same areas used by the ABET accreditation system. And on the right side, you have the knowledge units from the cyber operations designation for the CAE program. The diamonds on the top of an M, those represent the mandatory knowledge units, and the ones below that with an O there, those are the optional ones. And for the CSEC 2017 knowledge areas, you see we have great coverage of every single one of those knowledge areas. And the cyber operations requirements knowledge units on the right cover almost all of them. So there's a little bit of gap there, but we're really close to potentially being able to apply for cyber operations designation if we can get just a couple more of those mandatory knowledge units covered in some class or other. But overall, almost there. We're hoping to get, like they were talking about earlier, we're hoping to get that cyber defense designation soon, research designation soon. Yeah, someone is asking, what you can do to help. The Cybersecurity Club is actually having that student engagement is a requirement for getting one of these cyber academic excellence designations. So yeah, so keep the club going strong, and that'll help out. Other than that, that's the talk I had planned. Did pretty good on time. I know lunch is next. So yeah, if there's any questions, happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Is there a difference in the cybersecurity programs that are in the School of Criminal Organization versus the ones that are in the computer science?
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head because I did this, it's a couple years back now. But yeah, there are definitely the types of classes. You'll have different classes. So like in a criminal justice program, there's going to be a lot more like law and business classes, and in a computer science or engineering program, you're going to have a lot more of those programming and general kind of computer science courses. So yeah, you can have they can be pretty different. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple, I could ask you over lunch too, James, but the NICE alignment, I noticed that one of them, authorization official, there was nothing, it's just zeros all the way across. Is that a problem, or was that not even something we're worried about?
Yeah, no, let's see, these are all the work roles from the securely provision, collect and operate and investigate categories, or at least some of them. These are some of those from those categories. Yeah, I wasn't expecting us to cover all of them. I think authorization official probably had task descriptions that are more, it's probably one of those other types of jobs, like non-computer sciencey type jobs. And our program is very much a computer science program. And so that job probably is more like, it's probably more like a business administration type job, I'm guessing. So I don't know.
So these are actual jobs on the left-hand side, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, those are the specific work roles as they're listed in the NICE alignment, or in the NICE framework, yeah.
Okay. Then I have another question. On the course mapping, we have some dashed lines.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those,
Dashed lines, are they like, they have less of those elements?
so, yeah, no, I did that for a very specific reason. So they're all, you'll notice they're all coming out of that CPTS 432 class. That is the cybersecurity capstone course. 432, yeah, cybersecurity capstone project. That's like the
I see.
senior design course or senior capstone course specifically for the cybersecurity degree. I made those dashed because it depends on the project that a student does.
Makes
So,
sense.
so it could, depending on the project, it could cover different combinations of those, but it
We'll
will,
cover some of them, but not, maybe not all of them.
right, yeah.
Is that sufficient for getting the CACO?
Yeah, well, the left side doesn't matter for the CAECO, that's for the ABET accreditation.
Okay.
And I think for the ABET accreditation, I don't think we'll have a problem getting accredited because you see each of those knowledge areas is covered by at least
Yeah.
at least three courses, so there's really good coverage.
So it's gonna be covered.
Yeah. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, our next talk is at 1 PM. So you're free until then, try to be back, maybe 4 or 5 minutes early, so they're all in here.
We'll start right on time because we're having somebody come in from outside, regardless, they don't want to see workers, so, as Dave said, please keep your little.